Our elected officials need to get together, overcome their political differences, and get some things done because they need to save the future of our country. And the future of our country are those children that are currently dying because politicians refuse to take action and continue to take money from these special interest groups.
There were major anti-gun rallies across the state this weekend, another one tonight, and next month the students have claimed they will lead a national march to Washington for a big anti-gun rally.
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about what you just saw in the video leading up to me talking right now, and that is about the unfortunate shooting that happened in Florida. And before I continue, I just want to say that my prayers are out to the family of those who have lost loved ones in that tragic shooting. I think it was like 17 to maybe 19 people that lost their lives that day. A very unfortunate situation, and I understand where the kids are coming from, where their anger is coming from. It was one young lady by the name of Gonzalez. I saw that clip on CNN. I will post that in the box below. I don't want to play it right here, but she was talking a lot about how, the government's not doing their job, the gun laws, a lot of different things. They got a lot of attention. And like I said, I feel where they're coming from. I feel where she's coming from. But I think that their anger, I think that their frustration is misguided. Now, of course, we all know there's a whole big debate about guns in the country. It always seems to be a debate right around mass shooting time, although mass shootings account for a very small percentage of the actual gun violence deaths that happens in this country every year. And when you're talking about the weapon that people are talking about right now, the AR-15, that seems to be the big, bad, scary monster. Apparently, the AR-15 has been featured in many of these school shootings or just mass shootings in general, whether it be at a church, school, whatever. That seems to be the weapon of choice, but it's not always the weapon that's used, and it's most certainly not the weapon that's used the majority of the time when you're talking about just violence in the country, because less than 2% of gun violence deaths come at the hand of any type of rifle, including the AR-15. And before we continue into my feelings about the rally and the kids and violence in schools, churches, or whatever, I just want to say that the AR-15 is not some kind of special rifle. It just looks different than another rifle. And the name, the term AR-15 does not refer to an automatic rifle. It just means Armalite. It is a brand name of gun. Okay, same thing as Walther when you're talking about handguns. And talking about handguns, that's a good segue into my next point about the AR-15. People say, well, you shouldn't have a semi-automatic weapon. Semi-automatic weapons are just made for killing. Well, the reality is that most weapons on the market are semi-automatic. People don't know what these terms mean. They don't know what semi-automatic means. They think that it's just one step below automatic, but you could just push the trigger and bullets spray out. That is a machine gun. Those are illegal. You cannot buy a machine gun. An automatic weapon is also very hard to come by. You're not really going to be able to buy one of those. There are approximately 175,000 automatic weapons that are floating around in the civilian market in the USA. And when I say floating around, I pretty much mean held in private hands. Now, that may seem like it's a big number, 175,000, but let's put it in proper context. There are over 300 million guns right now in private hands in the USA. So you're talking about a fraction of a percent, basically. A low amount of guns that exist are fully automatic. Furthermore, you can't actually go get a new fully automatic weapon. The only kind of weapon you're going to be able to get is one that somebody will sell to you that purchased it or bought it from someone else that owned it before 1986, because at that point, you can no longer get a civilian fully automatic weapon manufactured. And if you're able to get one, if you're able just to find one on the market that's available, you got to spend a lot of money to get it. You're talking about 10 grand, 20 grand, and you have to go through the federal government to get it. You have to petition the federal government to get a license to be able to own the weapon, and they might not actually let you go through. There's all kind of background checks. Everything possible is going to happen to you, or you got to jump through all kind of hoops of fire, like, Barnum and Bailey Circus, to be able to get that weapon. And no, as of right now, and today is Monday, February 19th, 2018. As of right now, no fully automatic weapons have been used in any kind of crime. None. Because they are too difficult to come by. You're not just going to be able to get that on the street. The majority of the homicide that happens comes at the hands of handguns. And handguns, for the most part, are semi-automatic. All that it means when you have a semi-automatic weapon is that the ammunition loads automatically. So when you fire a shot, the next round comes in, you can fire it again. That action happens automatically, but you cannot just push a trigger on 9mm, 22, or whatever, and have it just spray bullets. You're not going to find that on the open market. And if you do find it, somebody got it illegally manufactured it. It's just not something you're really going to be able to find out there in the street. And that's just the reality of it. AK-47s, that's military stuff that if it's on the street, it's there illegally or stolen for the most part. Now, let's talk about the gun violence that happens in schools, that happens in churches or other places. How do we stop it? What's the solution? People are tired of hearing thoughts and prayers, is that and the third. And I understand your frustration, to understand where you're coming from. If you have an emotional and or visceral reaction to the situation, I get it. But let's just pause for a moment and think about where we've come in society. How did we get here right now today? How did we get here to where we have school shootings every other day? It seems like, not literally, but that's just the way it feels. Every time we turn on the TV, it's a school's been locked down. Now you got kids doing drills. And before I even get into how we're going to stop the school shootings, the school shooting in Florida was crazy. It's a lot of conflicting reports. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just going off of what I've seen from the interviews of the kids that were in the school when the shooting happened. One young lady said that there was more than one shooter. She said she saw the shooter, the guy Nicholas Cruz, who they captured alive. And I would definitely like to hear his story and see what was going through his mind when he did it. But I'll move on. She said she saw him like right in front of her, but she was also still hearing gunshots. So I'm like, okay, where are the other gunshots coming from? Who else was in there? Did she not hear the gunshots? Was it just, her imagination? Was she in shock? What was really going on with that? And then I also heard that there was supposed to be a drill that day. And they said the drill was supposed to be with realistic looking and sounding weapons with police in the whole 9 yards. And the one young lady, it's just somebody different. It was not the original person I was talking about with the two shooters, but she was saying she didn't even know that the shooting that was happening was real until she saw her teacher on the ground dead. So what's really going on? I don't know. How do you have a drill of a mass shooting, what to do, how to evade it, and how to protect yourself on the same day as an actual mass shooting? Maybe the kid, since he went there, maybe he knew that it would be a drill that day. Maybe he had inside information. Maybe he still has some friends in the school. I don't really know, but whatever the case may be, it just seems kind of strange. Now, to get to my point about how do we stop the school shootings, how do we stop the church shootings, I think you need to fix society. Because one thing I know for sure, and one thing I know for certain, is that you go back 20, 30 years, you did not have all these school shootings. I think Columbine, what was that, like 1999, 1998? That might have been the first one, or the first one that we heard of. And what happened right around that time or leading up to it that caused it to happen then, and what has happened recently that has caused it to happen more? Let's talk about all these drugs that are floating around. This is exactly why I made the video about Jeff Sessions being right about reducing the amount of drugs into our society. A society that is awash in drugs, that has heroin, fentanyl, all kind of other designer legal drugs from Big Pharma. A society that's watching those kind of drugs, that has those drugs proliferate every aspect of its society. Drugs given to children. You got 5, 6-year-old little boys on Adderall talking about, oh, he's hyperactive. Well, one of my main hobbies as a little boy was rolling downstairs. I definitely enjoy doing that. Now, I wouldn't do that now. At 33 years old, I might break every bone in my body. But back then, that's what I did as a little boy. Little boys and little girls, especially little boys, have energy and they have to expend it. When you put them on drugs, what it be doing to them? How was it altering their mind? How are they going to live when they get to be older? Because they never had that experience as a child, behaving as a child should. So all these drugs are now starting to just show their ugly heads. And rarely do you see a toxicology report after these school shootings happen. And that's one thing I always wonder about. What kind of drugs were they on? What was the influence in their lives that made this thing happen, that made the school shooting happen? And people say that the guns are the problem. Well, at one point in time, before all of this, like I said, 20, 30 years ago, we had more guns per capita in the USA. Matter of fact, we had guns in school. You had gun clubs in school. Okay, you could bring your gun to the school. You could bring your shotgun, your rifle, whatever to the school, and it wasn't really a big deal. Kids would have their shotgun in the back of their truck. I'm talking about 15, 16-year-old kids driving the truck to school with a shotgun in the back, but nobody got shot up at the school. You had guns in the school, gun clubs, but nobody thought, hey, let me shoot my classmate with this gun. There was no mass shootings going on. So you have to ask yourself, how did we get from guns being in the school and nobody getting shot to guns being banned from the school grounds, and now you have school shootings on a regular basis? What's really going on? I think we have to point to a society problem, a cultural problem. You got to point to the access of drugs, point to the lack of two-parent households. A lot of these school shooters are raised by single parents with no proper guidance. You got to deal with the actual people, with the problems they face, because a lot of these shooters, and I'll put a list of these guys in the box below. I think it's like 6 guys, including Nadal Hassan from Fort Hood, Dylan Roof, the South Carolina church shooter, the most recent guy, Nicholas Cruz in Florida, and I think it was 3 other guys. They were all alerted to the FBI, and then they did interviews with friends and family, and everybody said the same thing. Oh, well, you know, he was angry, he was a loner. You're starting to see patterns of behavior that lead up to the school shooting. Some want to blame video games and stuff like that, but back during the days of the guns being inside the school, you had these Westerns where the guns were glorified. The cowboys and Indians, you should be able to go outside and play with your guns. Like when I was a little boy, I had little cowboy pistols, and I would just go outside and play. Same thing with super soakers and stuff like that. It was just fun. I even had a grenade, you know, like a toy grenade. It looked realistic, and I had like a little pop cap on top. I throw it on the ground, and I would enjoy hearing it go bang. But I never once thought, hey, let me just take a live grenade and throw it at somebody, or let me take a live gun and shoot somebody. Matter of fact, I had a real looking BB gun, like a 9mm BB gun. It looked real. It had a rack slide, the whole nine. Used to rack the slide and open it to load the BBs in it. I used to go out and shoot pots and stuff like that. Never, not once did I think, and I'm not exactly an old person or a young person. I'm 33 years old. So, you know, I kind of grew up in the 80s, 90s or whatever. But never did I think that I want to go and shoot somebody. What's in somebody's mind makes them say, I want to go shoot somebody? You got to do with that first, because if you pass these gun laws, it's not going to stop that kind of mentality from happening. And talking about gun laws, what are we really going to do as far as having any kind of gun laws that are going to change what's happening right now today? Some would say that some of these guns that haven't been involved in mass shootings, school shootings, church shootings, whatever, the Vegas incident, South Carolina church shooting, and most recently what happened in Parkland, Florida, these could have all been avoided if you had common sense gun laws. What does it really mean? What does it mean? You ban an AR-15. Okay, there are other rifles that do the exact same thing as an AR-15. The AR-15 is just one brand of rifle. So you say, okay, let's ban all rifles. Why? What's the point? Now you got handguns. Handguns are also semi-automatic, and those are the ones that are used in the majority of the murders in the country. Like I said, rifles of any type only account for about 2% or less of all murder in the USA. When you're talking about gun violence, okay, we're not talking about 2% of all murder as far as somebody being stabbed to death, beat to death, run over by a car, drowned, whatever. We're talking about gun death. So it's a fraction of the actual death. So what are we really doing by banning the AR-15? The next thing would be to ban all rifles. The next thing would be to ban all handguns. But there's 300 million guns in society right now. The cat's out the bag. So if you ban guns, what is that going to do? All it's going to do is leave the regular citizen unarmed, and the person that wants to break the law be the only ones that are armed. Some of them may be criminals. Some of them may not be criminals. You may make a criminal out of an honest person that wants to protect themselves. In Detroit, Michigan, especially, you have a problem with home invasion and stuff like that. The police chief came on, I think it might have been a year or two ago, and he said to the people, hey, we can't protect you. Our city's broke. We do not have enough resources to go all around this city, all the abandoned homes, all the squatters and stuff like that. It's just too much going on. You need to arm yourself. And there was a video of a woman, and if I could find that, I'll put that in the description box below. But it was a video of her protecting her home with what appeared to be like an AR or some kind of rifle like that. And then some would say, why do you need an AR? Why do you need any kind of rifle? Well, it's probably better to have something like that to protect yourself, because you could be more accurate with a long rifle than you can with a handgun. Sometimes it depends upon what kind of shot you are. And then think about it like this. What if you have 4 or 5 guys breaking into your home with handguns? And there's been video of this, and if I can find that, I will place that on the screen before you. But you got 4 or 5 guys breaking into your home middle of the night with handguns, and you're in there by yourself. What are you going to do? No weapon. You got to be able to defend yourself the best way possible. And that's just the reality of it. I know people have talked about there's been 18 shootings in schools. That's not true at all, because it was a place called Everytown, USA, if I'm not mistaken. They compiled the list, and then they included stuff like somebody driving to an abandoned school's parking lot and killing themselves at night when nobody else was around. They counted that as a school shooting. They counted an accidental firing of a gun of a police officer. I think some little boy happened to get their finger on the trigger of an officer's gun in their holster and it went off. That apparently was a school shooting. Stuff like that they counted. And when you say a school shooting, as far as anyone being injured, it may have been only like 5 incidents, but not all of those were a situation where somebody went into a school and just started shooting students. That might have only been 2 or 3. I could think about what happened in Florida and maybe also Kentucky, maybe one more place that happened this year. And that you're talking about 2 or 3. That's 2 or 3 too many, I agree. But to ban guns will not get to the bottom of it, because like I said, 300 million guns already exist out there in the wild, private hands, whatever the case may be. So what are you going to do about those? Are you going to do a gun confiscation? I thought that was illegal to do ex post facto, to say that I'm violating the law after I do something legally. If I buy my gun legally, I have on my papers, then you say, okay, that's no longer valid. Then what do we really have here? At the end of the day, as I close, my heart's out to all those that die, but we need to be thinking about the bigger picture. You can't just look at gun violence and say, okay, let's just ban guns and get rid of the problem. Okay, you got to dig deeper into the core of the issue and solve that, because if you're not going to solve the core of the issue, banning guns is not going to help. It's not going to do anything to resolve the problems that we face. So what do you think? Do you think that we should ban guns, and where do we start? Do we just ban everything? The AR-15, rifles, shotguns, handguns, revolvers, flintlock pistols. Should we just ban all of that? And then what about the criminals that are out there? Do you know that in the Commonwealth of Virginia, if you are a felon, you cannot own a gun? If you do, you get a 5-year mandatory minimum. I know a guy in jail right now doing a mandatory minimum for a gun charge because he was a felon. So you can't just, people say, okay, we got to have laws to keep guns out of people that are, they're crazy, they're criminals. Well, my friend who's in jail right now was a felon and got caught with a gun while he was doing another crime, and he's in jail for the gun, but it still didn't prevent him from being able to get a gun. He was not able to purchase a gun legally being a felon, but he was still able to get it. So how did that happen? The gun law did not prevent him from doing what he did, right? So what are we really going to do? And then think about if you were on the other end of the gun. My friend did not have a victim, but what if he did have a victim and he used that illegal gun? And the person that was a victim was a regular civilian, not a criminal. What are you going to tell that civilian? Oh, you cannot have a gun to protect yourself against a criminal who had the gun illegally, who went to jail for the gun? I mean, what are we really saying here? I think everybody should be able to protect themselves. The politicians that talk about gun control, many of them have armed security, armed to the teeth. What makes their life more important than mine? I'm a person too, just like they are. If they can have armed security, if they can be armed to the teeth, just not personally, and some of these politicians actually have guns themselves. There was a gun law in Virginia, or it was a proposed law that said that politicians will be able to have their gun concealed carry permits go across the borders of states, but the regular civilians could not. I mean, what kind of stuff is that? They understand, as I close the reel this time, they understand the importance of being able to protect yourself. But it seems like many of those that scream for gun control do not understand it. including politicians themselves, they speak with the forked tongue. But do you think that I'm right? Do you think that everything I said is on point here today? The gun's not the problem. The people are the problem. I know it's a cliche, but it's real. Guns do not kill people. People kill people. That's the honest truth. We need to fix the human being before we can get any kind of forward progress in healing our society. But whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.